Coming up on 5 Minute News. Russia responds to France over Macron's China comments. Woman sues Rudy Giuliani over sexual coercion and unpaid wages. And US on track for default without debt ceiling hike. It's Tuesday, May 16. I'm Anthony Davis. Russian officials yesterday denounced comments by French President Emmanuel Macron that Moscow was becoming subservient to China, saying Western countries must get used to a world underpinned by the Kremlin's close ties with Beijing. The Russian criticism focused on an interview Macron gave to the Paris daily L'Opinion, in which he decried the Kremlin's isolation brought on by its invasion of Ukraine more than 14 months ago. Russia has de facto started a form of vassalization with China and has lost access to the Baltic that was critical to it, as it has precipitated the decision by Sweden and Finland to join NATO, Macron was quoted as saying in the Daily. This was unthinkable 2 years ago, he said. His words appear to focus on talks in Moscow in March between Kremlin leader Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping, in which they said they were deepening their strategic partnership by entering a new era of ties. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Russia's relations with China were those of a strategic partner and had nothing to do with dependence. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko said Paris had become preoccupied with Moscow's strengthened relations with China and changes that implied for the world order. A woman who said she worked as an off-the-books employee for Rudy Giuliani during his stint as Donald Trump's personal lawyer alleges in court papers that the former New York City mayor coerced her into sex and owes her nearly $2 million in unpaid wages. Noelle Dunphy said in the lawsuit that she was Giuliani's business development director and public relations consultant from 2019 through 2021. She initially made her allegations public in January, but she detailed her claims further in a 70-page legal complaint filed yesterday in New York. Giuliani vehemently denied the allegations through a spokesperson. His lawyer had also previously denied that Dunphy ever worked for Giuliani. The new court filings portray 78-year-old Giuliani as a hard-drinking, Viagra-popping womanizer who made satisfying his sexual demands an absolute requirement of her employment. Dunphy claimed in the lawsuit to have made numerous audio recordings of Giuliani, including some in which she says he can be heard making sexual comments, demanding sex, and making sexist, racist, and anti-Semitic remarks. Included in the complaint were screenshots of suggestive text messages purportedly from Giuliani. The lawsuit claims Giuliani hired Dunphy in January 2019 and promised to pay her $1 million a year for her consulting work, but he told her he had to defer paying her until he settled his divorce from his third wife, according to the lawsuit. Almost immediately, according to the complaint, Giuliani started making sexual advances, including kissing her in the back of an SUV on her first day and demanding she take care of him sexually, sometimes while he was on the telephone with high-profile friends and clients. Often, Dunphy alleges Giuliani would demand she work in a bikini or in American flag-themed shorts that he bought for her, and he urged her to strip naked for him during video meetings. Giuliani reached a divorce settlement in December 2019, but Dunphy said all she got from Giuliani were a few cash payments totaling $12,000 to cover living expenses. She said he still owes her $1,988,000. The U.S. Treasury Department reiterated on Monday it expects to be able to pay the U.S. government's bills only through June 1st without a debt limit increase, increasing pressure on congressional Republicans and the White House to reach a deal in the coming days. In her second letter to Congress in 2 weeks, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen confirmed that the agency will be unlikely to meet all U.S. government payment obligations by early June, triggering the first ever U.S. default. The debt ceiling would become binding by June 1st, she said. The new date reflects further data on revenues and payments received since Yellen told Congress on May 1st that the Treasury would likely run out of cash to pay government bills in early June and potentially as early as June 1st. It comes a day before US President Joe Biden is expected to meet House Speaker Kevin McCarthy for talks ahead of an overseas trip for the president that starts on Wednesday. Yellen has repeatedly warned that failure by Congress to raise the $31.4 trillion federal debt limit could spark a constitutional crisis and would unleash an economic and financial catastrophe for the US and global economies. Republicans are holding the White House hostage during talks, insisting on budget spending cuts in return for ratifying an increase of the debt ceiling. You can subscribe to the 5-Minute News Patreon for bonus videos, commentary, and more. Go to patreon.com/5-Minute News.